Spectrum wants to hear your views. You can SMS at any time during the show. Type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond Kizito. On Spectrum tonight, we review the week of our guests, Honorable Mike Sebalu, Ugandan representative of the East African Legislative Assembly. You're most welcome to Spectrum, sir.
Thank you very much, moderator, and good evening to all our listeners and viewers out there. I do bring you greetings from the East African Legislative Assembly in particular, and the East African community in general. And I want to use this opportunity to welcome all the delegates that have reported for the IPU. All speakers of all parliaments in the world are in town, including our own speaker, Right Honorable Abudi, the Speaker of East African Legislative Assembly. And I wish the Speaker of Uganda, who is hosting, and all delegates a very fruitful IPU session.
And you know that the East African Parliament is an observer to the IPU.
Yeah, it is. That's why our speaker is here, together with the delegation from the East African Legislative Assembly. So we are effectively represented.
All right. Well, we're also joined by Mr. Nicholas, a legal consultant at AKIJUL, also a commentator on political and social issues. You're most welcome, Nicholas.
Thank you very much, Edmond, and good evening to all of you. I'm glad to be back.
Back from Rwanda. Well, we're looking at a couple of issues. One, the Afro-Barometer survey. 74% of Ugandans, so that's about 3/4, think the country is going in the wrong direction. Some, 80%, think the government is doing badly on the economy. 77%, these are all high figures. 77% believe that government has failed to address the questions of standards of living. 78% think the government is failing to give them jobs. We'll be looking at that survey about the credibility of it and the implications of thereof. The launch of the National Term Limits campaign. Civil society this week launched a campaign to try and push the 9th Parliament to amend the Constitution and restore term limits by the 30th of September. That's before the 50th Independence Anniversary. We'll look at that. Bishop Zach Nirenje is one of the people spearheading that campaign. We'll talk about President Museveni tough talking to donors, telling them they should stop giving money to opposition politicians to fund their activities, saying this is money laundering, and the IPU meeting, which is in Kampala. You'll be able to join us by sending text messages through 7197, that is Spectrum. Message, question or comment sent to 7197. Nicholas, what do you think about this campaign? It sounds, it paints a dismal picture, dark cloud. Is it accurate?
Well, I'm supposing talking about the
Afro-Barometer survey.
Yeah. First and foremost, I must admit I haven't read the detailed report of the Afro-Barometer survey. So I have no idea about their sampling frame, whether these figures represent a feeling across the country. I haven't read that, so I'm not quite sure about whether these figures reflect a general trend across the country. But what I'm quite sure about is that opinion polls in many countries determine directions of government policies. Okay? Accurate opinion polls. For example, in many Western democracies like the US, like in England, in Australia, determine how government responds to a particular obtaining circumstances. If it's a question of jobs, if it's the question of the economy, opinion polls are very useful in determining people's response, especially more so in a country where the measures have been banned, and so there are very few avenues for people to vent out their concerns. And in that respect, therefore, this survey is most welcome. But on my own belief as well, I do share very strongly some of the concerns that this report, the bits and pieces of it that I've read, raises. Because the entire 1 year of this term of the NRM has been a year that is consumed not in addressing the social problems of this country, but rather in politicking and fighting political battles. Okay? We haven't, as a country, gone down to implement the manifestos of the party. that has won the election. We have preoccupied ourselves with issues of corruption, with issues of governance, issues of freedoms. And every time the executive, parliament, and the arms of government have had to respond to these emergencies, to these issues of corruption, the oil debate, the bicycle debate, one crisis after another. So admittedly, the direction that this country is actually taking is worrying for me, because I do think that we are not getting down to work. We are not addressing the biting issues that affect the common person in this country. Because the youth complain about jobs. That is a fact. That our universities churn out hundreds of qualified graduates every year. Add that to the private universities. You have national universities, the public universities across the country. So you have well over 12,000 people graduating across the country every year. And yet, we do not seem to have a strategy on how to provide employment, provide avenues for putting to use this workforce that we are actually churning out. So in that respect, I think that there's been a dismal performance on the part of the people running this country in creating jobs, in developing innovative ways. And that's exactly what you now see, that our girls are being used as sex slaves in Malaysia. They're being, we are actually the biggest exporters of security guards in Iraq, in Afghanistan. That is a symptom of a failure to create jobs and reinvigorate the economy in our country. Now, in terms of standard of living, you will agree with me that things haven't gotten any better. So I think that in those respects, I agree entirely with the findings of the report. That many things have gone wrong and that we've got to work towards it. The question therefore is that this report offers a snapshot, offers an opinion on what people think in this country, which in my view is accurate. What does this report recommend that government has to do in respect to the things that they have actually outlined? I think that those recommendations should be the key recommendations that any person in government must pick up and begin to implement. Begin to get down to work, address issues of corruption resolutely at once and for all. Tag the members of this government who are consistently and repeatedly being named in corruption scandals, because the longer you keep them, the more we shall go around issues of corruption. Begin to address the question of youth unemployment, the question of not just youth unemployment, but even the quality of our education system. What kind of graduates are we sending out every year? Are we having graduates who are relevant to our market? Those issues must be addressed by anybody who is in the education sector. Standard of living, we've got to begin to again reinvigorate our economy, to provide jobs, to provide a conducive environment for people to raise money, people to participate in their own governance in the economy, and begin to make money. Because quite evidently, what we do have in this country, it does appear as though the tax waivers, the tax holidays that government gives is heavily, we are creating a class of capital imperialists, at the disadvantage of local entrepreneurs. Can we begin to then encourage local entrepreneurship and encourage local people to take part in the economy? Even when you have, we need these guys to come here, we need the MTNs of this world to be here, but I think we need to begin to develop a system in which Ugandans begin to go on and take part in running this economy.
All right, Honorable Mike Sebalu, we'll try to get a little bit more detail on that, on your perspective on that. But Honorable Sebalu, what's your view there?
Yeah, I do welcome this Afro-Barometer survey. It's a good initiative, but I don't agree with the assertion that the country is heading in the wrong direction. I think I don't see serious scientific reasons to arrive at that conclusion. What I can say is that we are going through challenges, which challenges are not in isolation to Uganda as a country, because I have the privilege of knowing what is happening in the region, knowing what is happening on the continent, but even in the globally, you'll appreciate. I mean, what is going on in Greece and all these places is not any secret for anyone to appreciate. I just wish that this survey put these issues in context. I always enjoy comparative kind of studies. They give me better picture. More so when they relate countries that are more or less facing same challenges or more or less operating in the same terrain. Then you are able to say that one is off track, one is, but nonetheless, many of the issues that are raised here have been attended to. Maybe the results are yet to be realized, and 1 year after an election, in my view, is too early for anyone to make any meaningful assessment, because like he has said, some of these issues are influenced by the kind of environment that has been created. And how I wish in this study one is able to raise some of the impeding factors that have not allowed maybe certain achievements to be registered, because you appreciate that in this country there is a huge section, there is a section that has made it their preoccupation to create havoc, to even destabilize, like in the city when people are doing their work. Even some businessmen have come up to say, look, you guys, you better take your activities elsewhere. We are in business to make money. We want to meet our strategic objective as business persons. So I wish someone came out and also was able to analyze the operating environment, whether it is the normal environment, whether it is being facilitated to make sure that certain things are not done the way they ought to be done. But even then, I believe we need to appreciate some of the things that have been done. I want to applaud the Minister of Finance. She's in the process of ensuring that the youth who are engaged in entrepreneurial activities do access some level of funding. That is work in progress. So when you say unemployment, I think we shouldn't look at it from the viewpoint of jobs from formal sector, but I think we need to look at it also from the viewpoint of the private sector, encouraging entrepreneurship, innovation, and creativity on the part of the youth. And if the government has taken that road, I think then one needs to appreciate when you come up and say nothing has been done in this area, when about 46 billion has been set aside, the process is on, the banks are underway to work out modalities of how the youth can access this money. Then when you make this kind of assertion, you need to do it within the context of appreciating that there is something being done, and employment the world over now, it has moved away from formal sectors only to encouraging more private sector-led job opportunities. And when we inculcate a spirit of entrepreneurship and we get a vast majority of our youth engaged in production, I think that is a very good policy direction, and work is in progress in that direction, which personally is something that I would wish to appreciate. So when you bring this, I find it a bit disturbing. And now we also
chip in, if I may, Honorable.
Yeah.
That the question is that not the absence of a policy. I mean, Uganda has one of the best policies that we have around the world. The point is the huge difference between policy and the practicalities.
But I was just explaining that the policy is rolling out.
Yeah. In actual sense, the amount of money dipped, for example, for youth entrepreneurship, first of all, it's not money from the government of Uganda. This was money from the German bank. You know, it's not our initiative.
Yes.
But that
initiative is ours.
That's it.
If you get partners helping you out to implement,
that's it.
Because if we go into who has brought what, at the end of the day, is there a framework that is ensuring that some jobs are created, and more so from the viewpoint of the private sector, and the youth, inculcating in the youth the culture of innovation and entrepreneurial spirit. Now, I think think this whole debate can also best be appreciated looking at the background of what we've gone through as a region, as a globe. We've just come out of global recession, and definitely to expect that the effects of this have totally ceased, I think is also not being very, someone needs to study that and be able to bring that in context, because all over these effects are still on, and they're still affecting economies and countries. Now there's also the issue of the standard of living and the managing the economy. I think there is, some of the things could be due to lack of information, because there is a very good exercise going on geared towards ensuring that we empower our people. The president has been meeting leaders from all the districts, zoning the country into various zones, working on a process which is bottom up of ensuring that the ordinary people, the leaders at all levels, engage in the process of enterprise selection, zoning this country, and empowering communities, so that our people cease to live from actually his move is to ensure that people move away from the idea of subsistence living, so that even when you're doing agriculture, you do it with as a business, and you choose the right enterprise to make, you choose the right crops, you choose where you have comparative advantage over others. And this is being worked with the help of the Minister of Agriculture, a number of experts, and it is a very good program, which I know definitely is going to be rolled out and will definitely go a long way in empowering the household incomes, because at the end of the day we are looking at the issue of increasing household incomes, so that people have capacity to have food for their survival, but can also be able to manage the cost of their livelihood.
Right.
So, in my view, this kind of survey ought to appreciate some of this, and in a way, I guess they ought to take advantage of available information and programs that are being undertaken,
right,
and so that it brings a picture that
it's more holistic.
That is more holistic.
Okay, I've looked at
but I can look at it, if one just looked at it the way it is without giving deep analysis, it could turn out to be very diversionary, because someone will just go off not imagining that anything is being done. A lot is being done,
see, Edmond,
and needs to be appreciated.
Edmond, like me, the Honorable, does appear to me as not having read the entire report. And I think even if you've read the entire report, we can spend the whole evening poking holes into the methodology, into the numbers. But the one fact that remains is that the picture that we are painting, that all is well. All is well. Just wait.
No one is painting that picture. No one is painting that picture.
That there are things coming up. There's investment in job creation. That there's investment in creating entrepreneurship. All is not well.
Well, I've looked at some figures,
well.
ILO figures, International Labour Organization figure. I need to interrogate this figure. I've seen it in only one place. I've not really dug beyond that. It gives a very, very low unemployment rate. Is there a possibility that unemployment is only in the urban areas, that the rural areas people live off their land and they have jobs where in agriculture, for instance?
I think that could be given.
That's from the International Labour Organization.
That could be given more people tend to concentrate in urban areas, and some of the conclusions that they come up with may be defective in some cases. How I wish maybe that they worked with the Bureau of Statistics. I just want to appreciate that they worked with that. And no one is saying that all is well. Definitely there are challenges. But when there are challenges and you don't have any measures to counter them, that's when you can say the situation is bad. I mean, if you've planted, and okay, someone is projecting hunger coming, but you've planted. You are not the same as someone who has not planted anything. The situation would definitely be very different. So the fact that there are mitigating factors, there are programs lined up, to me, cannot say the country is heading in the wrong direction. The country may be managing with some challenges, but to assert that it is totally wrong direction, that is resigning and abdicating responsibility and despair, which I think is not the case with Uganda as we speak.
All right, listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. We're going for a commercial break, but we'll be back. I need to remind you that tonight we're reviewing the week. Our guests, Honorable Mike Sebalu, Uganda representative at the East African Legislative Assembly, also a member of the NRM NEC, and Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, legal advisor at AKIJUL, also a commentator on political and social issues. We'll be back after this break. Do stay tuned to Radio 1.
The spirit that binds us. Strictly not for sale to persons under 18 years. Please.
It used to be that when we paid our bills, we had both feet on that ground for ages in a long line of strangers. But now, we pay bills instantly with our feet relaxed in front of the TV while we watch football with friends. You don't have to queue anymore. Pay your utility bills with Airtel Money. A simple, secure and instant money transfer that leaves you with all the time to do the things you love. Pay your bills, send and receive money, top up, access your bank account and withdraw Airtel Money across all InterSwitch ATMs countrywide. So, visit any Airtel shop today and register your SIM card. Airtel Money helps your money do more.
Special fares to the US, London, China and India with extra baggage allowance on selected flights. To book your flight, contact your local travel agent or call us on 041-7800-900 or book online at QatarAirways.com/UG. Qatar Airways, world's 5-star airline. Terms and conditions apply.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90 is brought to you by Stanbic Bank.
Welcome back tonight on Spectrum. We review the week with our guests, Honorable Mike Sebalu, Member of Parliament at the East African Legislative Assembly, also a member of the NRM NEC, and Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, legal advisor at AKIJUL, also a commentator on political and social issues. We've been talking about the Afro-Barometer survey, which paints a dark picture of people's sentiments. I underline sentiments. Feelings can change in 5 minutes, they can change in 5 years, they can change in a very, very short time. We're going to look at the National Term Limits campaign. Nicholas, civil society launched a campaign. They say the 9th Parliament really should give this country a 50th anniversary gift by restoring term limits. Are they on the right track? Do you think they'll get anything, or are we, going on a wild chase?
Well, the question of whether this will come to pass is a different question. The question that I think we need to respond to is the principle. And I do share with them the principle, because all of us know the reason why we had term limits in our constitution. All of us know the process we went through to enact this constitution, and the building blocks for that constitution. It was hugely informed by our history. If you look at the preamble of our constitution, it is very clear. It paints a picture of an unstable country, a country that has had instability, constitutional instability, and enacts a constitution that, in their view, should be a durable constitution, a constitution that will last. Okay?
Go on.
Now, what do? 10 years after enacting our constitution, we begin to desecrate the very consensus. Desecrate.
Well, but that's an arguable thing.
But that's my opinion.
All right.
That we begin to desecrate the very consensus that was arrived at through a process of rigorous consultation. The issue of term limits, by the way, I can tell you, was one of the issues that was not contentious in the constitutional
making
consultation process. It was not contentious.
Yes.
There was a
unanimity about it.
Exactly.
Right.
People agreed throughout the country that we need to have 2-term limits for heads of state.
Yes.
To have a predictable governance, changeover of power. Even if one party wins, at least there's going to be changeover of power, and there might be change of policies. Now, what do we do 10 years before this very provision is even tested? For the sole benefit of none other than President Museveni,
yes,
in very controversial circumstances, which others have called a bribery of Parliament, we amend Article 105, subclause 2, which entrenched term limits. I think that, in the view of many people and my own self, that has been the darkest moment in our constitutional history from 1986. That we removed a pillar of ensuring good governance, of ensuring stability and peaceful handover of power, and replaced it for the convenience of the individual of President Museveni. That was bad. I think that it is time, and we agree across the board, that we need to restore term limits to ensure that the very consensus of people of Uganda, which has never changed since the local commission days, must be restored.
You make some general statements. We agree across the board. The general consensus. What do you mean?
We have had voices coming from across the aisle, from movement diehards, from multi-party diehards, from civil society organizations. Remember the process that was done before election, the Citizens Manifesto. And the citizens of this country spoke in that manifesto and said one of the things they would want to see is the term limit restored. So we need to capture that concern and restore term limits.
So you think you're positive that Parliament will pass it? Since you say it across the aisle, it's got support.
Whether or not Parliament will pass it is a different matter, but we have to agree on the consensus that term limits is important for our constitution and therefore must be restored. Now, once we agree on that principle across the aisle, we can then begin to debate the process. The civil society organizations are demanding that term limits must be restored before September 30th, so that when we mark the 50 years of independence,
we have term limits.
We have term limits.
Do you think that is going to happen?
We actually at
Tell us as an analyst, do you think it's going to happen? Well, you desire to have it. You have the right as an individual, as a watcher of politics. Do you think they'll pass it?
I think it can be passed. It can be passed. But you see, in terms of East African region, let's make this one last point. Uganda is the only country in the East African
which doesn't have term limit.
That has no term limit.
Just like Britain.
Every other country has term limit.
But you see, when my brother brings that, there are many variables in the East African legal regime that scattered across the region. For instance, in Kigali, a term is 7 years in Rwanda. So 2 terms and 3 terms behind the door. So, and all the rest have 5. So that is an area of disparity. When you go to Tanzania, when you win elections after, you don't petition the outcome of elections. When you do it, you are considered to be subversive, and that is
can you say that again? When you lose an election or when you win?
Like for instance, President Museveni's electoral victory has been petitioned in court, and the Ugandan constitution is such that a president is not sworn in until a given period of time to allow for any possible petition to be lodged and disposed of. It is a constitutional matter. In Tanzania, it is a constitutional matter that no one dares do that. So if anyone has issues with the electoral victory of a president, in Tanzania, there is not any room for petition or litigation. So there are these, when you go picking one and use it conveniently, there are many that if we are to analyze that we need to look at. So that argument may not be very useful in that respect, because there are those variables. But term limits is good, but what are the length of terms before you go into the limits? That is an issue. What about if someone is dissatisfied with the electoral process and there is even no chance of petitioning? So these are variables that need to be looked at, not in isolation, like the case is always quoted very conveniently from many people. Now, I see this as a project. Really, I see some smart guys out there in civil society really coming up with a project, and some donor funding is going to come in.
Oh, you think it's a money making?
No, when one is talking of by deadline by August, definitely that is a project.
Go on.
Because that does not even seem to give people a chance to internalize the issues. Because at the end of the day, this question must be resolved by the people of Uganda. Power belongs to the people.
You think we should have a referendum on it?
If not be at some point, a lot of people want to do it.
Provision that can only be amended by Parliament.
Yeah, but you must involve the population, because if someone is talking of how many months are those from now?
6 months.
6 months. Yeah. This is too serious a subject.
It was amended in 2 weeks.
This is too serious a subject to be considered in just 6 months. Yes. So to me, I look at this as some very good project. Some very good project, which has been put out there. I definitely have a lot of respect for my good friend Zach. I have very, very good respect for him, and I work with him on the Africa PI review.
But on this one,
I think the idea of gathering support from masses across the country, well, I think this is an idea on the table. The people of Uganda must be given an opportunity to decide. No section, no individuals should dictate what the people think.
I take very serious exceptions to the submission of 6 months. Very serious exceptions, because one, when the term limits were being amended, there was no cry for consulting Ugandans. Members of Parliament were paid 5 million shillings at Mosa Court, and in less than 2 weeks, Article 105 subclause 2 was removed. How convenient now that we are demanding for term limits to be restored, that they are now bringing the argument that we must consult people in this country. It is possible, we can do it, we've done it before, especially for such a fundamental matter. Secondly, the argument that Honorable is fronting is completely diversionary. Talking about projects, about money, about Bishop Zach. No. Campaign is not about money.
By the way, I want to be understood in very good context. Yes. Because the statement here, the campaign is spearheaded, and that's why I said I have respect. So I don't want you to impute bad motives on my part.
Exactly.
And that's why I even qualified my statement that I have a very high respect for him, but my view is that let's give people a chance. Why do we go to agitate them? That is my concern. So where is it coming from? Because someone is talking of drumming support, gathering support. So it is as if people are being agitated into something that they have not thought of. This is what is here.
All right.
And I'm interpreting the statement here.
I am part of the campaign.
Oh, you are part of this campaign?
Yes, I am. I'm very, very much active in this campaign, and I think it is for a good cause.
So you're not a neutral observer in this?
I'm not a neutral observer.
It's not.
I have an interest that term limits must be restored, even tomorrow, if it can be. Because I think that we are also Ugandans, by the way. Civil society organizations are not aliens in this country. They're also Ugandans who have the right to demand for change, and have every right to go around to seek popular support for their opinion.
All right.
And for me, the way I can conclude it, this is a very democratic country.
But do you agree with the principle?
This is a very democratic country. And for me, I believe that this exercise will be on. But I only have bits of doubts on the 6 months.
About the
I feel that really, if you have real good intentions on this matter, and give people a good chance to appreciate and to have good debate, pros and cons, doing it in this kind of project framework.
I can explain the 6 months.
Disturbing in my view.
Uganda is marking 50 years as an independent country.
6 months' time.
In 6 months' time. we think that would be a wonderful independence gift for this country, especially at a point at which we are seeking for national consensus and constitutional stability.
Let's move forward.
I think that would be a wonderful thing for President Museveni to give it to us, but also declare that he has no other interest in contesting for elections.
President Museveni,
because he's been around,
to do it.
I think, far too long.
Not Parliament. Well, let's move forward. President Museveni,
this one agenda item. It is becoming an agenda item now. Term limits, but at the end of the day, the people of Uganda will decide. And for me, I have tremendous respect for the people. They should be able to make their own. Well, you don't have to drown them up. You don't have to agitate them. If you did that,
stop in the Doc Commission and said term limits must be maintained. Even in the Constitutional Review Commission, headed by Sempeva Commission. Yes. In fact, the proposal to amend term limits was from the executive, not from the committee, not from the commission.
Yes.
The government white paper, which was developed as a result of a consultation process headed by the Minister of Defense.
Now, this one should not use the same campaign. The campaign has already indicated his interests, so let him not use this power.
Let's talk about something else. Well, he has a project framework, like you seem to say. Let's talk about President Museveni's warning to donors. They say they've been giving cash to people, members of parliament. No receipts, doesn't go through the banks. He says this is money laundering and it's illegal and it must stop. What do you think, Nicholas?
Well, I can give you privileged information if you want. That the Governor Bank of Uganda in a month ago wrote to every financial institution in this country, demanding them to, without fail, provide written documentation about the activities, financial dealings with both an individual and an organization.
Explain that, it's not very clear. The central bank demanded...
The Governor Bank of Uganda wrote to all financial institutions in the country, demanding them to furnish the Bank of Uganda with written evidence and confirmation of financial dealings between an NGO, a policy think tank in this country, and the banks.
Yes.
All banks didn't work for 2 days. They were fidgeting because even if you had no transaction, you were commanded, even if your report was nil, all banks and microfinance institutions in this country were commanded that even if you had nil dealings, by March 21st, you should have filed that report with the Bank of Uganda.
Yes.
That tells you the extent to which government is suspicious of free-thinking, independent organizations. Now, the warning to Nona doesn't come as a surprise. We all know what has been happening with the Deepening Democracy Program. You know, my namesake, Dr. Nicholas Detronte, has had a terrible time with his funding of all political parties, by the way, not just opposition. You know, they have been funding the development of party structures, even for the NRM. They gave them money, they refused to take it, but the money was available. They've had problems. So I think that there is certain uneasiness with the shift in donor approach to the development of this country. See, in the past, donors used to put their money in a basket fund and say, look, this basket fund is managed by government, everybody once must dip their hands in this basket. But that approach has been discovered to be ineffective, because the thing they seek to address still continues, like corruption, like governance issues. So what they do now is this direct funding to organizations, and government seems to be very uneasy with that and seems to read ill motive in those activities.
Is that against the law, giving money to FDC, for instance, or Chams's party?
I think we just need to appreciate how do states operate, structures and formalities, and you know, there are so many things that are done in our part of the world which are never done on the other side of the Rubicon, and my friend Nicholas knows that too well. You know, just meeting diplomats without clearance from foreign affairs minister. Yeah, you know, it's standard. You know, it's standard practice. Diplomatic practice. Because you are a foreign diplomat, so you to engage any issue of engagement should be through the foreign office. And this is standard practice. But when it is flouted here, it appears to be normal. And when one comes up to say, look, let's go back to the rules of the game, again it becomes suspicion. Right. I think we are building a state, we are building democratic processes, we are constructing a state, and let's play to the rules of the game.
Okay.
Standard practices world over, need to be appreciated even in our part of the country. And for me, I think this engagement the president had with the diplomats was a good one. And if you had good rapport with some of them, they will tell you that he's simply telling us what we know. They know it. Although they've been doing it, assuming they've been doing it, but they know how you link up with which offices, and more so when it comes to money from structured institutions from out, going to individuals. If such practice is there, you never get that in all these other places. So I think let's be civilized enough also and allow our systems to grow, allow our institutions and the structures of government to operate where our partners, our friends, respect our institutions if they have anything to put across the table. If it is parliament, you can support it institutionally. You don't have to support individuals. If it is any other organs, then let the organs of the state know what is going on. And more so, if it is in the best interest and if it is well-intentioned. So to me, this is purely
do it above
good practice, diplomatic practice, and these are standard. Actually, if any of our ambassadors engaged in some of these things which are done in here, you just hear them being given 24 hours, behaving in a manner incompatible to his diplomatic status.
All right.
These have always come across the continent.
All right.
And no one ever raises a finger. So I think we just need to appreciate the president was just stating what normal practice of diplomacy is. You must relate through structures and institutions, talking
about diplomacy, the president could have been a little bit more diplomatic then in that sense, because you're accusing diplomats of spying, you're accusing them of corruption. These are serious accusations in diplomatic relations that you can't accuse of.
But if you
stating it, has the government of Uganda lodged a complaint with these missions about their conduct, about accessing?
But there's such a thing as a demarche. When a country is not happy with another country, they'll summon the ambassador.
Has the government of Uganda summoned this? Have they summoned
the custodian of our foreign diplomacy is the president.
But see,
even then, there are processes. That process he used, that courtesy is also part of diplomacy, where you can
maybe there'll be a demarche. We don't know.
And if you consistently continue, then that's when you go into the demand. But even the issue is raising, for instance, giving individuals money. It is known practice the world over that if people want to cultivate agents, they give. That's how people get agents in ministries and secret agents. They give them money.
I've been a beneficiary of a donor funding to attend a workshop abroad, for example. Would that be construed as recruiting me to be a spy for the regime? No. Well, I think the context in which this statement was made was when the president was welcoming new diplomats in this country.
Let's talk about
that could even have been a process of cultivating you. You may be on the way.
Becoming a secret agent.
It begins somewhere.
Honorable Maxwell, the IPU is in town. The conference starts tomorrow, opened by President Museveni together with the IPU. President Rebecca Kadaga, the Speaker of Parliament, campaigned powerfully for it. It eventually came. It's the first time it's hosted on the African soil. AFOC have been told to go to Kolwe Airstrip. If they have banners to display or demonstrations, if they want to walk to work, they can pave the entire place. Is it fair for the AFOC? Honorable Sebalu.
Yeah, you see,
allowed to go and
first of all, I want to congratulate the Speaker of Parliament of Uganda, Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, and the Commission of Parliament and all committees of Parliament and all parliamentarians of the 9th Parliament for having pulled off a very good level of performance in terms of legislative diplomacy. You know, right now we do have such a term as legislative diplomacy, where you get all these people coming together, engaging in subjects that were hitherto only preserve of diplomats and governments, so that they complement efforts of ensuring that the welfare of the people is enhanced. So that is a big breakthrough on the part of our parliament. Its visibility regionally and internationally is definitely well boosted by hosting an activity of this kind. A situation where we have all speakers of parliaments in the world in the capital, they are down there in town, is something to write home about. And I definitely wish them well. And as a region, East African community, we are proud that one of our countries is hosting such a meeting. So that is something to write home about. A4C. Now, regarding the A4C, definitely it is just a question of good practice. A4C,
when you have visitors.
When you have visitors, you behave. Actually, even some of these recent
the meeting that you don't mention it that
even some of these very recent skirmishes that were on were totally unnecessary and undesirable. If these guys were very well intentioned, they ought to have seized the fire. Actually, since this year began, they would have given a very good projection for the country in terms of hosting this big event. So for them to want to sort out their issues at this point in time is not good, because they are represented in parliament. Members of this FOC, some of them are even parliamentarians, and the institution is hosting. So I think we just need to be civil in the way we do certain things and appreciate to blend our country in the most appropriate way.
What is being done is tantamount to saying that if your house is always dirty, if guests are coming,
you clean it up.
You clean it and put the rubbish at the corner and hide it.
Yeah, well,
I think the IPU meeting provides an opportunity for this country, for us, I think, to provide a full picture of our democratic discourse. That discourse must be in full blast. That discourse must include everybody who has an opinion in whatever manner they want to do it, What I think should be done is that instead of confining demonstrations to remote and unforeseen places where the delegates who are here may not even have a chance to hear from those from those is unfair. What we need to do is provide a proper avenue and front for different divergent views to be heard.
So we should have A4C reloaded, relaunched.
I'm not saying A4C, but I think that the opportunity might be out there.
Nicholas, when you go to the US and the UK, are these places where
I have attended conferences.
Whatever.
I attended conferences in which demonstrations have been held right outside the hall of the place of our conferences. I've seen demonstrations on plot 10 Darwin Street. I've seen demonstrations right in front of the White House. Let's provide that space for a possibility of peaceful demonstrations.
Nicholas, the Macedonian tourist Edmond was found guilty of molesting 50 girls and posting pictures on the internet. He was jailed, freed and jailed again.
I think you got the story wrong. He was not convicted for molesting girls. He was convicted for computer misuse. The case against him was not a case under the Penal Code Act, but a case under the Computer Misuse Act. So what has happened is that there are no complaints, there are no statements, there are no victims of a molestation. The case before the Magistrates Court was a case for computer misuse. I do, however, not condemn the fact that he's been molesting young girls. If indeed he has been molesting young girls, let these young girls come forward, let them file statements, let this guy be investigated. If indeed he did so, let him be prosecuted.
Honorable Sebalu, very once.
Yeah, the fact that
let the sunlight in.
Good morning, sunshine of my life. You look happy today.
I am. I came in here and I saw there was a whole pile of washing to do.
But I thought you didn't like doing the washing.
No, I love it. Anything else you need washed?
Sunlight 2-in-1 with added fabric softener. Smells so good, you want to use it again and again.
Let the sunlight in.
Sunlight 2-in-1. Sunlight clean, sunlight fresh.
Sunlight in.
Hi, Dad. I'm still in New York. My flight back is delayed.
Oh no, but Kwanjula is tomorrow. Now what about the Nkoko Namatoke for the Bako?
Don't worry. I may be stuck, but my money isn't. I'm at Western Union right now sending the money straight to your MTN mobile money account on your phone.
Send and receive money worldwide with MTN Mobile Money using the Western Union Money Transfer Service. Go to your MTN Mobile Money menu, select Western Union and follow the prompts. Another first from MTN.
MTN. Everywhere you go.
Western Union. Moving money for better.
John, Mike and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his